Now it's okay. Okay, times three. Okay, we're good. Technology, Robert. Oh, I'm messing with my potentiometer. Okay. Do, do, do. Okay, I'm good. I'm good.
All right.
It's I'll explain as once I get to going here. So this goes. Waiting for the mariachi band.
Those guys are always last.
They are. They're laid back. They're like, and when this is like the mountain mariachis, so it's a whole different thing.
The mountain mariachis. Yes.
Well, good morning, Robert Strong. I think I hear Libby there too, maybe.
Yes.
She's good.
Good morning, Richard Pollock. Hey, I understand that you're in the Petersburg, West Virginia area.
Well,
is that true?
I am. I'm within a large radius and altitude. We have made our way back up to the Blackwater Falls area because, as you know, this is the beginning of the Leaf Peepers Festival in downtown Thomas, and we never miss that.
Never.
In fact, this is the first time I knew it was here, and it's really exciting. But we'll go there later. That'll be post-radio science news research. Leaf peepers. I was going to go explain to the folks about the anthocyanins and all that, but then I might get thrown out. So.
No, you know what? You might be surprised. There are some leaf peepers that are majorly into.
Oh, sure.
The physics, the biology, the meteorology, and the chemistry of leaves changing colors.
And it is a fascinating thing. We have actually talked about it, and we've had some kids do science projects, and I can even remember, just as a small leaf peeper reference for those folks who, as you say, are deeply into the science of the color changes, you and I actually found out that by extracting all the pigments from bright leaves, that some of them fluoresced. You may remember that.
Yes.
Well, we'll just leave that to people to ponder as we begin radio science news.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of radio science news, this is episode number 857 in a series.
Ooh, 857.
And I know. And if you're a prime number fan out there, just get up, get ready to dance. This isn't just a prime number.
What? There's more?
There is more. This is the first of a prime number twin. As you know, there are prime number twins out there. For instance, 11 and 13 are prime number twins.
Wow.
2 and 3 are prime number twins.
Order.
3 and 5 are prime number twins. But as you get further and further down the number line, they get rarer and rarer.
More.
And so the next prime twin is in 2 weeks. This will be October 8th. That'll be 859. So prime twins, usually except down in the below the 10 level, there's a prime, and then there's a non-prime, and then there's another prime. Those are called twin primes, and this is the first of our twin primes.
Well, I'm feeling good
for this, which I'm real excited.
Well, yeah. I think we should have a party. I'm just saying.
We are. In fact, my understanding is the latest news is the Star Watch that we have planned for Petersburg tonight from 7:30 to 10 p.m.
Yes.
at the Petersburg City Park, where you and your wonderful wife will be there.
We'll be there.
Myself and my wonderful wife, who is sitting here, will be there. We are going to have some astronomical telescopes, and it is now being advertised as a star party.
Oh, party on.
Speaking of party, yeah.
Party on, Garth. I'm there.
That's right.
Does that mean it's legal to bring a banjo? Is that what you're saying? Well, let's not press.
It's never legal to bring a banjo, but you're in Petersburg, and because you will be a partial celebrity tonight, because you will be with the star party, they will probably look the other way.
I hope so. That's sometimes the best you can hope for. So, Robert, let's. I'm going to let you get the folks to the Launchpad of Science because I have too many topics again.
I will indeed. So you're in the Petersburg, West Virginia area.
Yeah.
Libby and I are in the Mount Storm, Gormania, West Virginia
Yeah.
area. We are doing a few things here in the cabin, and then we're going to load up the telescopes and be down with you sometime before 7:30.
Okay.
I'm thinking that we're going to arrive about 6:30 because it takes a little while to set things up, and there will invariably be people that will just want to talk weird astronomy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Or non-weird astronomy stuff, and so that'll give me plenty of time to set up.
Sounds good.
And then we'll see you and your wonderful wife just before 7:30, and we'll get started.
Well, who knows what will
I'm real
happen? It'll be exciting, though. I'm telling you.
Yes.
All right.
So for our listeners that are tuning in to Radio Science News, this is September 24th, 2022, the morning of the gigantic Petersburg City Park Star Watch Star Party, scheduled tonight from 7:30 until, I don't know, maybe dawn.
Well, yeah.
It is scheduled to be 10 p.m., but it might go later if the skies are clear. So if you are online, the best thing to do is to go to www.smartcenter.org, SMARTCENTER.org, and you will be on the Smart Center webpage, my favorite webpage.
Oh, yes.
If you go down just a little bit, you'll see the trifecta triple rainbow of Radio Science News. And if you click on the live link right above that, it will take you to the Radio Science News, what Richard calls the Launchpad of Science,
Da, da, da.
which I just love that phrase. So, oh wow, we've got all kinds of cool stuff. This is my first time seeing it. We've got Artemis,
You've heard.
missing moon.
Missing-
You know, it's really bad when a moon goes like, you know, on a milk carton. That's
Oh, yeah.
that's pretty weird.
Well, and these are some of these what we touched on but didn't get to last week, and so
Okay.
I'll use your notes from last week to help steer me
Sure.
through it. But
We've got Neptune's rings, Mercury heat pump.
well, Mercury then heat pump.
Oh, Mercury then heat pump.
God,
Sorry.
I think a Mercury heat pump would be scary, but then
That sounds like a really bad idea, actually.
my favorite one, right in the middle. Libby will love this one too. Fox News,
Fox News. Then we've got ECAT
Le Mans.
Le Mans. Oh, is somebody going to make an ECAT car?
Well, you know what? I love this topic because
Makes perfect sense.
one of the things that you and I like to do, Robert, is we like math, and we like to
Love math.
take like factoids about, say, the size of things and the
Mm-hmm.
power of things, and someone has done a little analysis, just as you have perhaps projected forward that. Everybody's talking about how you need batteries for cars and all this. This touches
Do you
on that.
need batteries for cars?
Well, this touches on that concept
Yeah.
actually in a hybrid sort of way. So it's cool.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
And P3,
P3.
that's really Pyrograph 3. We're just going to touch on that base
Okay.
briefly.
And then bananas.
Now, this next one, I don't want you to, if you haven't had breakfast yet, bananas,
I have. I just finished it.
bananas, tea, and honey are all together in a little group.
You
there.
know what? Bananas, tea, and honey was the combination when I was in the Peace Corps. If you got sick
Oh,
and you got a dysentery and you were losing liquids out of both ends,
this was what you
They
wanted.
said-
Okay.
they said eat bananas, drink tea, and if you can get it, eat
Yeah.
honey.
There.
And so that was supposed to help.
So this is all fond memories for you if we cover these topics.
Yes.
I can see
Oh, yikes.
citations.
Citations. And then ISS Petersburg, is there an International Space Station?
There is
Are
a
you
very
going tonight?
brief one. Now, of course,
Okay.
I'm looking at
Wow.
citations and thinking of Petersburg. We went last night. I had to find a Wi-Fi place to add a few topics, and we found that Petersburg has a McDonald's with Wi-Fi, and we ran and got a cup
Uh-huh.
of coffee. And well, they had a huge police, one of those sobriety stations there.
Uh-huh.
So we got through it, and then I told the guy we were going to
You
McDonald's.
did. Good.
Well, I was able to get through it. Guy got out and walked. No, they just were checking, your driver's license. And of course, we were at
Sure.
McDonald's for an hour and a half, and on the way back, we had to go through it the other direction. And the guy goes, "Weren't you just through here?" And I said, "Yeah." And he just waved me on, like, "Get out of here." Since we are down at the end, let's take a quick look at the ISS Petersburg, and you may make a
right.
note. This is actually now. We always have this page on the Radio Science News site. If you look up, it has the ISS. Now, the thing that you can do is you can change the location of the one that we have on our page, which is for Wheeling. So
Right.
I did the aforementioned, and now when you click on that, Robert, you will see, well, not only can you see where the county airport is in Petersburg there with the, I'm looking at, so that literally tonight, this is going to be very brief, and I put this on just because when you're in the mountains and something is only like 10 degrees above the horizon, it can be very iffy.
Yeah. Right.
But
Okay.
but in fact, we actually have the chance. It looks like at 8 o'clock that there's a 1 minute. Am I on the right date here? Wait a minute.
Okay. I have got September 24th. It's visible for 1 minute.
1 minute.
Maximum height 10 degrees.
Yeah.
Appears 10 degrees above the northwest and disappears 10 degrees above the north.
Yeah. So this
And
will
that's
be
at 8.
8 o'clock on the nose.
Yeah.
So
All right.
I wanted you to make note of that because obviously,
Right.
if since you're starting at 7:30, this might be one of the neat things that we'll have a chance to observe depending on the topography at that spot. So
Right.
we'll have to
Exactly. Okay.
see. All right. So I just wanted to make
Yeah.
you aware of that, and you can write that down. That'll be exciting for tonight. And then, not such good news. I'm going to go clear to the other end of the board here, and this is kind of what's happening with Artemis. And one of the things that's interesting, I never thought much about this, but they began this. They wanted to get this launch off before hurricane season,
Right.
and unfortunately, they weren't able to because of other issues. But now, there's a great picture of it on the Launch Pad 39B. And you can see that the sky looks a little ominous there.
Oh, it looks very gray and very bad to launch. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically this is, and again, this is just an upgrade, an update on what's happening. Basically, they're looking, I'm scrolling down and it says teams will decide no later than Saturday whether or not to launch or whether or not to delay the flight. I think it's due for Tuesday. Oh, anyway, but the point is, if they don't get it off, then they have to, of course, find out when the next launch window will be, and it
Right.
looks like it's clear into October or November. And
wow.
then they have to roll the thing in and out. The big takes 3 days to go back and forth if they have to make some
Oh,
major
yeah.
adjustments on it. And it says, although hydrogen seeped past the newly installed seals during this last Wednesday's dress rehearsal. They've got, I never liked this term. The launch team got the leakage down to acceptable levels.
Ew. That does not sound good.
It's
Hey,
acceptable.
as far as I'm concerned, when I'm driving my car,
Yeah.
the acceptable leaking fuel
Is zero,
limits
yeah.
are zero.
Zero is
Right.
probably not acceptable. Okay. Well, anyway, so just for the fact that you and I have, we've been very interested in this mission, and we want to keep folks up to date. This is kind of a summary of where we are, and it looks like they think they'll have a chance. Even they think they can sneak this in ahead of the bad weather, and we'll see what happens. Otherwise,
Right. I'm looking down towards the end. It says NASA has just 2 chances to launch the rocket. Tuesday, October 2nd, before a 2-week blackout period begins. The next launch period would reopen October 17th.
well, that's not too bad. That's all right.
Yeah.
It, as they say in science, it is what it is. That's the science term that I
Yeah.
like to use.
Oh, hey, there's a little below that. It says explore further. NASA fuels moon rocket in test. Hit again with pesky leaks.
Yeah.
I think that's a really nice terminology. Pesky leaks. I'm sure that there are some engineers using some other
Pesky.
terminology.
Yeah, I think Pesky was wasn't he a famous Russian scientist, Professor Pesky?
Oh yes, Professor Pesky.
He did so much calculations. Well, and I'm only because you and I have talked about it I'm looking within the past 2 weeks. We've talked about for folks who are wondering why, like Robert and I are saying, how interesting is that it's always this hydrogen leaking out. We have discussed a thing called magnecular hydrogen. And we don't want to take up any more time this week but you can go back and find some stuff on your Google machine. If you look back 2 weeks, way at the end, there's a thing about magnecular, and that's one of the things that could change a lot of these missions to go hit, in the future.
Sure,
right.
Sure could.
All right, something we're probably going to look at tonight, Robert.
The planet Saturn.
Well, no, I was thinking.
The planet Jupiter.
Well, I was thinking it was Jupiter, but no, this is about Saturn. Now, I think did we touch on this one at all last week? I think we were so caught up in our other topics.
But I didn't want to look at it and spoil the fun of seeing something for the first time in knowing what it is. So this is Missing Moon?
Yeah, this has to do with the fact that some of the rings, they're talking about the rings themselves and the tilt could be because a large portion of this material is from a moon that got, I'm looking for the actual, whether the thing just was ripped apart by the gravitational blah, blah, blah. It says here around 160 million years ago, the team estimates what the moon that they're considering or calling they're calling it Chrysalis, this missing moon that was proposed. It says it orbited Saturn for several billion years, pulling and tugging on the planet in a way that kept its tilt or obliquity. Of course, that's the term for the tilt, in resonance with Neptune. But it says that 160 million years ago, according to their theory, it became unstable, too close to the planet in a grazing encounter, and then it just started to come apart. So it says the loss of the moon was enough to remove Saturn from Neptune's grasp and leave it with its present-day tilt. So these are their early solar system dynamics that they're proposing here.
So what size of an object are we talking about? Do they give some kind of a size to this?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but I'm saying, as you would be surmising, We're talking about a massive object.
Well, if you're talking about something large enough to keep the tilt of a Saturn in a stable manner, Saturn has a mass of about 95 times the Earth.
Yeah.
Now the Earth's moon, Luna, keeps the Earth's tilt in a stable configuration. So if we were to just do the rough, estimation here, then we're talking about a moon maybe 95 or 100 times more massive than our moon.
Yeah, and then further down they are talking about the dynamics of it.
The reason I say that is that the Earth is only 81.3 times more massive than our moon. So we're looking at a ancient moon of Saturn that could have been Earth-sized.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any. Again, part of this I'm sure is theoretical, but they're using it to explain. One of the big issues is they're saying that, and I just scrolled past and I'm going to go back to it. It's just talking about the missing satellite could explain two long-standing mysteries: the present-day tilt and the age of its rings.
Right, sure.
It says, just like a butterfly's chrysalis, the satellite was long dormant and suddenly became active, and the rings emerged. Sure. When they say I'm assuming they're talking about when it started to break up. Some of it would have crashed into the actual planet, and then some would remain. As it said, including ice and stuff like that. So this is really very neat stuff. Yeah.
I'm a real Saturn ring fan, and I know that the estimated age of the Saturn rings is only about 100 million to 100 million years old.
Right. That's
it turns out that rings of this size are not long-term sorts of things. They're not going to be around for billions and billions of years.
Yeah.
And so this is in a solar system concept. The rings of Saturn are a fairly new thing, and there's lots of theories. So was there a reasonably large moon that got too close and then within what is called the Roche's limit, where the tidal forces of Saturn and the rest of the moons tug on it hard enough that it essentially shreds the moon. So what's fascinating here is that I've never heard a estimate of how large they thought the moon was that had gone within the Roche's limit of Saturn to be shredded to make the moons, make the rings. But we're now saying that the instability of Saturn's tilt depends upon this moon being gone.
Yeah, and if you go clear to the bottom, it's a real complex thing. Chrysalis encountered a chaotic orbital zone in close encounters with Iapetus and Titan, and eventually came too close to Saturn, and so in the grazing encounter that ripped the satellite to bits, leaving a small fraction to circle the planet as a debris-strewn ring.
So we might be talking about a planetary-sized moon.
Yeah, this is something pretty big. Yeah, this complex.
We might be talking about something, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, maybe 8,000 miles across.
This is cool.
Something large, something big. Something really big.
Well, this will be interesting to see as they proceed, because it says, I like the way, again, in true scientific, there's a next grant coming for, it's a pretty good story, but like any other, it will have to be examined by others, wisdom says.
Grant.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it will be re-examined by us if we get a grant.
Don't. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. That's that's interesting stuff. And now, Mike, are we going to be able to? We should be. Are we looking at Saturn tonight, Robert?
We are. If you come to the Petersburg Star Watch,
that's my little.
Not only will we be looking at Saturn, we will be looking at the rings, which we can now tell people about. That between 100 and 200 million years ago, a large planetary-sized moon that has been dubbed a chrysalis got too close to Saturn within the tidal zone called the Roche's limit. It got shredded and created the rings. So we'll see Saturn's rings and largest moon Titan tonight.
Nice. Well, I'm going to jump ahead to the next, because I have this little sort of series of seemingly planetary stories. The next one has to do with another cool thing from the James Webb folks. And it says this is literally the first direct look at Neptune's rings in more than 30 years.
Wow.
Now, that's because it's something we're not going to be able to set up one of our nice little telescopes and see something like this on a typical night. The last time it says the astronomers were able to actually directly visualize what they call the dark rings was when Voyager 2 flew past in 1989. So check out this image. It's in infrared light. The James Webb Space Telescope. I'll read it. It says Neptune and its rings glow in infrared light spectrum in this image from the James Webb Space Telescope.
Oh, I see it. It just came up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is just this actually image was just released September 21st. So,
Richard, that's spectacular.
Isn't that wild?
You know what? I know that that our listeners for Radio Science News, think, boy, these guys are really mean to the James Webb Scope. No, we're mean to the fact that it should have been more. But
this is pretty good.
Is a unbelievable image. This is why you needed the James Webb for things like this.
If you
That's spectacular.
and just to give you a real sense of it, if you scroll down in this story, you will see an image from the 1989 Voyager 2 flyby. And that's really cool. You see these really thin arcs of light in the 1989 image.
Yeah, so it says the Neptunes appear as thin arcs of light in this 1989 image from the Voyager 2 spacecraft, taken shortly after the probe made its closest approach to the planet. So now you'll notice that in the lower right-hand corner, you can see Neptune.
Yeah, just
and
a little
Neptune is at a thin crescent.
Yeah.
The reason that we could see these rings is that the sunlight is shining off of them.
Yeah.
So sunlight would be in the lower left and shining up on it. And so being that they're probably made on ice and so forth, you're getting this great reflection off of those. Wow, that's really
now
nice.
Quickly just scroll back up to the original image, and when you see, I'm saying besides the rings, which are match pretty well with the Voyager picture, it looks like there's some other interesting things going on there that maybe we'll sort out later.
If you look, there are bright regions. There, some of those might be auroras, but some of those also might be hot spots. They might be storms.
Yeah.
And I know that there's what they call on Neptune's in Neptune's atmosphere, they call it the Great Blue Spot, and that's a big storm in Neptune's atmosphere. And so we're probably looking at different temperatures where the cloud tops are that sort of pinkish hue, but when you've got a storm and you're bringing up warm material, warm atmosphere from below, then you're getting these brighter arcs and spots. That's really neat. It also appears that we've got some moons in there too.
Well, that's
that
what
are
I was
fairly bright.
Right, and within the rings, there's this interesting spots there. When I first looked at this picture, it was like an optical illusion because I looked at the center part first, and I'm seeing that these things look like they're going one way, and the ring is the other. But the ring itself is actually the top part of the ring is in front of the planet. The bottom part of the ring is behind the planet. And then, so that would make sense for these other forms. And in the very, like even the equatorial planet itself, there's a different color too. That's interesting. All right, very interesting. And we're not going to see this with a normal telescope, but let's have a kudos to the James Webb folks. Now this next story, Robert.
Job, guys.
This next story is about Mercury. And now, first you're going to think, oh, it's another planet story. This is a very, I want to say it's in some ways a cautionary tale. It's as we look at this beautiful, if you sign on to this little, and again, as I'm talking to the folks who are listening to this show, like at a later date, and they're figuring out where do I see this, you have to be on the radiosciencenews.org page, and the live links will let you follow this, with some coherence.
Right.
So it says the settlements of the ancient Maya were contaminated with mercury. Now scroll down, and Robert, you see this beautiful piece of pottery here, right? Bright red. This thing, it says it's all painted with cinnabar.
Oh, with cinnabar. Okay, which is
yeah.
Which is elemental mercury.
Yeah, and so
oxygen.
Wow. And here's the part that's so scary is that I want folks to take time to read this, but I say it's a cautionary tale because people were shocked that there was so much mercury, contamination of these sites and things. And typically it's from mining and fossil fuel power generation, like burning certain things that produce that. We all know what some of those are. So it was a really weird concept that there was so much. And then they realized that part of the theology of the Maya were that a lot of the religious manifestations, whether they're pottery or buildings or things, had to have, the concept was that it was supposed to represent blood. The redness of the cinnabar was to represent blood. The brilliant red pigment of cinnabar was an invaluable and sacred substance, but unbeknownst to them, deadly, and its legacy persists even to these days around the. And at some place in the story, they do mention that the effects of mercury. You could even see it in one of the kings was like morbidly obese, which is one of the issues of mercury poisoning, besides madness and other strange things. So to give you a sense of how tough it was, it says concentrations range from 0.16 parts per million to an extraordinary. So if you were at Tikal, many people were familiar with Tikal as a site. The actual toxic, what they call the toxic threshold for mercury, is defined as 1 part per million. Like that would be considered, you can't build a house, you can't live there. It was 17.16 parts per million at Tikal, just because of all the cinnabar and mercury-containing paints and powders. Wow!
I remember watching one of your and my favorite programs, and Ancient Aliens.
Oh, and if so.
Yes, and if so. And they were in a Mayan temple, and underneath the Mayan temple, they found concentrations of mercury that just went right off the charts.
Yeah. Yep.
And the reason was they had gone off in the direction that mercury could be, used as an electrical conductor.
Oh, yeah,
they were thinking there were generators and all this. But no, what was really going on was this was the mercury from the paint.
Yeah, everything just leached into the soil.
Wow, okay. That makes very good sense now.
It's like I said, cautionary tale, and in fact, it mentions all the problems with mercury poisoning, damage to the central nervous system, kidneys, liver, tremors, impaired vision, hearing paralysis, and mental health problems. And it says it's perhaps significant that one of the last Maya rulers of Tikal, whose name was Dark Sun, who ruled around 810 Christian era, is depicted in frescoes as pathologically obese, which is one of the known effects of a metabolic syndrome caused by chronic mercury poisoning.
Chronic mercury poisoning.
See, I'm telling you, it's too much celebration there. I don't know. Jeez.
Yeah.
Again, a cautionary tale for those of us today. Now, Robert, we were talking about some interesting things, and one of the interesting things that I think that you and I probably will be talking about offline at some other point is, if for example, Robert, you knew somebody that had like an older building that was like, say, that was going to need to be heated, right?
Yeah.
You would be wanting to look at strategies. And I ran across this because I remember that somebody was talking about, even as you and I look at interesting things like the ECAD and maybe, these very interesting things like adding solar to your building and all that.
Right.
One of the really wonderful concepts that is right now very efficient, though sometimes it's expensive to put into place, are things that we all kind of know as heat pumps. And the thing about heat pumps are that, like for example, if you were just, say, a person who had a sweater and maybe some lighter clothing, you would understand that if you could live, say, in a cave or within a few feet, like maybe, say, 10 feet below the Earth's surface, you could count on it being 55 or so degrees all year round.
All year long.
I mean, and so the obvious thing about heat pumps is that it's easy to see that heat is already there. It's not like you have to burn anything. When you think about how far above absolute zero 55 degrees Fahrenheit is, you've got a lot of energy there.
Exactly.
And I remember one of the things that junior high kids would classically say, well, this is so easy to look at. If you have something that's like 55 degrees and all you need to do is say, take heat pumps and separate it into hotter and colder zones, then you have something, say, that's 20 degrees warmer and your house could be 75. Or you wanted cooler things and it would be, you would drop it down to like 35 that's a great efficient way to do things.
For real.
So now when you scroll through this, Robert, I'm wondering, sometimes you don't have a lot of room, right? Now, if you scroll down to the bottom picture, this is going to be reminiscent of something that I think will make sense. Now, of course, the very last one, they don't have a picture of it, I don't think. Mine's not going down. Is where, see, the thing that's so cool, here's this, they show a picture of a house, right? And they're going down into a vertical thing. they mention that one of the best things you can do, if you look at the very bottom one, a less common but low cost alternative closed loop system, is if you have
Is
a
a
pond
pond or
or a
lake.
lake, or as anybody else who may have lived, say, close to, I don't know, like say the Ohio River.
Yeah.
It's possible that your building, if your building is like close to the banks of the Ohio, as they say in the old bluegrass song, or say the
Yeah.
entire downtown Wheeling area, you are probably just tens of feet from being in the, the Ohio River and its aquifer basically extend, directly below all that territory. So anyway, I wanted you to look at this because
What an interesting idea.
a vertical ground loop that I do recall when somebody else was mentioning a downtown building that they said all they did was they had two, like I want to say maybe 60-foot basically wells, like you're digging a water well,
Right.
and then they just ran their pipes down through that, and it was continuously the heat was always there because of the massive aquifer that stayed at the same temperature.
Right.
And as our good friend Fred would say, and then you're done.
And then you're done.
So
You know,
yeah,
I was reading not very long ago that the vast majority of the energy used in HVAC
yeah,
is for cooling,
Oh, yeah.
not heating.
yeah,
And so if the underground aquifer or the underground rocks or whatever stay at a nice comfortable 55 degrees Fahrenheit, it's not so much that this is valuable in the winter time to heat with,
yeah.
but this is probably more valuable to cool with.
Well, yeah, and you could almost get away with not even having to heat pump separate it because you could just run it through a heat exchange. I mean that cool temperature.
Right. So imagine that you had a building with a basement,
A deep basement, yeah.
a deep basement, and you were to run some. It doesn't even have to be copper pipe. I mean, we think of copper pipe because it's a good conductor, but copper is fairly expensive. If you just had stainless steel pipe and you were to run the air through that, let's say that you had, 1,000 feet of pipe that laced back and forth in there. If you were to blow air down into it, cold air would come out the other side.
Forever. Right? Like forever, yeah.
Forever.
Pretty much,
So
yeah.
all that you have to do is you just have to blow air through this pipe. And the beautiful thing about blowing air through a pipe is you don't have to blow it through. That's a lot of work. You just have to create a low pressure system on the end that you want it to come out of.
Yeah. Like you could paint it black, for example.
Pardon?
You could just have it painted black out the other end, and that would just draw it would be sucking the cold air up right through your building, just like I'm getting excited about this possibility.
What an interesting idea.
Yeah, in case, Robert, you know anybody that has such a building or would be looking into doing something with a building like that.
Well, for the reason that Richard and I are talking about this, are you still there?
I am.
Good. The reason is that the phone just slid. Okay. Is that my wife Libby and I just bought a building in downtown Wheeling to move our science store and to put our new science center in.
That's perfect.
And it has a basement that is in the flood zone, and so essentially nothing can be put in the basement
except
a heat exchanger.
There you go. All right. Well, we're pretty well done. I think we're finished here. That's great, and I think that's going to be a great idea for a new building, new facility that's in an old building. That's actually what we're talking about.
Right.
Very cool. Yeah, I've seen some wonderful discussion about that. So Good.
Okay. When we see you tonight, as we're setting up the telescopes, we need to talk about this more, because I'm not even sure that we need to drill down. I would imagine that we could just put pipe down in the a basement itself.
Yeah. Or you know,
if you just
yeah.
What?
I was just going to say,
If
or
you just put the,
if you have like a say it was something easily like that could be removed, like a brick, subfloor kind of thing, and then you could.
Gee, there just happens to be a brick
Well,
subfloor.
Well, gobsmack me there.
Blow
I
me
can't
down,
believe it.
as a Popeye used to say, right?
Blow me down.
Okay.
All right. Well, Robert, I know that you're probably intrigued by my next topic, Fox News.
Oh, yes.
Because, I usually,
Fox News.
occasionally we find, but you know what? This is actually something a little different. I think I may have tweaked you a little bit. This is actually a story from Science News. This is the first time that they've now been able to define red foxes and wolves as animals that actually fish for their food.
Oh.
Everybody's seen pictures.
Red foxes and wolves are now the only canids known to fish.
Yeah, now so obviously everybody is really familiar with pictures of, you're watching the salmon swim upstream in Alaska or somewhere,
sure.
and the bears have. This is, you think about this as almost like, well, this is an obvious thing, but it's not so obvious. And this is literally the first, this study that these folks at the University of Cordoba, I love that school, University of Cordoba, they basically, if you scroll down, this little, Science News has this image, I think you can see it on YouTube too, but the fact that it says a male red fox spotted grabbing a carp during spring spawning season. So this is one of those weird little animal intelligence stories.
That's neat.
And basically, most puppies and the animals and things like that don't do this. It says wolves, Pacific Coast wolves, and along the north coast of North America and Minnesota are the only other canids. In other words, the dog family, the wolf dog, the fox family, that are known to do this. So, hey, put that in your animal intelligence file. This is some pretty cool stuff.
That's really slick.
Okay, so now this next one here, I hope you have your calculator out.
I do.
And
I do have my calculator
and you
out.
probably need a couple some paper and one of those like a 30-60 triangles and no. So this was a little thing. We've been talking about this briefly, occasionally. One of the big things that I think that's happening that's important is this concept of, some more alternative energy things. Last week we talked about the idea that, and again, everything is based on the information that is being given. Everything needs to be proven, but a lot of this stuff has been accepted. The tests have shown it. So we're talking about the so-called Andre Rossi and his ECAT and what kind of energy it produces. And the first thing that most people said, why aren't you just talking to Tesla? And making a thing here. So if you scroll through this, somebody sat down, and this particular person, Stephen Carells, is an engineer. When this is from the blog where Rossi talks about what's happening, and people ask questions, and he's always happy to reply. But this may not be something we would take a lot of time right now to look at, but he starts with we're looking at the facts. The Le Mans 24-hour race, average speed 128 miles per hour. Highest speed 250. So we're setting up the parameters of what you would need. Now, if you look at the next one, it says Tesla is in 2023 they're going to release an upgrade to its Roadster with a maximum speed of 280 miles per hour.
Wow!
And a range of 750 miles because look what it's going to have. It's going to have a
200 kilowatt hour battery capacity.
Okay, so that's what we're starting with. But now, the thing is, when you're talking about a 24-hour race where the average speed is that's too far for that battery, right?
Right.
Now you could say we're going to swap out
So what
batteries.
you're going to have to do is they're going to have to stop the car to take the battery out, put a new battery in, reconnect all the wires, and off it goes.
Or they're going to say, what else we could do? You could assume that you have Instead of the 200 watt, if you're down to the next paragraph, and
Okay.
they're even putting an average speed of 130, which is higher than you would need.
Right.
It's according to the facts or the statements made by it says you would need 50 kilowatts output in order to say take 100 kilowatt hours of battery out. So that takes away mass and space, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then what you're going to do is replace it with, and they all the calculation of what you would need, which would be 50 of these 100 watt little units that
Right.
we've talked about before. So the part that's really, if again, as all the assumptions about power output and the power needed and all that are correct, the other thing is just kind of just a question of, do you have space to fit it all in? And so they
Right.
go through a whole calculation of the dimensions of each unit, and basically you're there, Robert.
So it says that a Tesla battery pack is normally 267 centimeters by 157 centimeters
Yeah.
by 30 centimeters. For the English speaking world, 30 centimeters is essentially a foot.
Right.
So this is about 8.5 feet by 5 feet by a foot.
Yeah.
This is a huge volume, and even if it were only the density of water, I mean, you can imagine that this would weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, the kind of so the real bottom line of this analysis, and I'll leave it. I know this will be something we can look at. They basically say, okay, but what you're going to want to have is the 100. You have the half of the battery. You're going to leave it in place. That leaves you a space of 133 centimeters by 154 centimeters by 30. Like you said, it's a foot by. Now, the analysis they do to replace all of that space of battery with these ECATs that will be generating this electricity, it's actually only 119 centimeters by only 105 by only 18 centimeters. You could almost put two of them in there.
Right.
I mean, that's what's crazy. And so I like the final analysis. And again, people are going to say, is this for real? We're going to just say, we'll just have to see. But I'm thinking I would say in the future, this will be a demonstration project that someone might see. It says the only need for pit stops are for the driver to change or to change the tires, and that's it. The car would
Right.
not even have to stop if you didn't have to do that. Think about that. So the 24-hour Le Mans race could be, and forget the 24 hours. You could just keep going, Now, of course, you're going to deplete that the first 100 kilowatt hour battery, and then the next analysis that would be interesting would be just say for average driving, for 11.4 years, what would be the need in terms of the ECAT electric generation? So something cool,
Right.
And you mentioned something, of course, that they didn't even take into their analysis. Is the huge reduction in mass would probably mean that your mileage would be even better.
Well, I just did the math, and I haven't been able to double check myself because I'm doing this, of course, live.
Yeah.
But the volume is 1.23 cubic meters.
Right.
For the original one. If it was made out of water, that's 1.23 tons of mass.
Wow.
So suddenly you've got 2,500 pounds of mass. I mean, I don't want to talk about pounds and mass.
Yeah, but as people would understand it,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what we're looking at here is if you could save that much mass, means that your efficiency goes up.
Oh yeah.
That means that the wear and tear on your tires goes down.
Your speed goes up. Your acceleration.
That means that you can accelerate and decelerate at greater rates and not burn out your brakes. That means that you can win the race.
Yeah. And of course, the brakes
what that means.
The brakes would be regenerative braking too. So they're
exactly.
That just
I would
makes.
certainly, I hope so.
There's only one thing that could make it
Well-
even better, Robert. If we jump to the next story, is if the entire structure were also carbon composites.
Ah.
So I just put up this quick little thing. We were talking about a good friend of ours that we're talking about doing some strange little projects with that works for a company that makes what they call Pyrograph 3, which is a product that's actually was derived from coal research, which is a vapor deposition of carbon to make carbon nanofibers. So
What an idea.
I just got to put this up because it says strength in P3. The reason why I put this page up was there was some stuff at the end that you and I hadn't talked about. Okay, so if you scroll not all the way to the bottom, because if you go down, you're going to see you're going to see space planes and jets and all. But right in the middle, there's a little things that has to do with just some basic advantages. The first one is reinforce, mechanical durability, stronger, lighter. I mean, that kind of says a lot, right? Here's one that we talked a little bit about. It also adds electrical conductivity and thermal conductivity to this material, because carbon is a wonderful conveyor of electricity, electrical flow and heat flow.
Yep.
So, and then the other one is that it also can absorb sound, obviously, optical, so you can't see it. But the other big one is, you get into the electro EMI. This thing shields all sorts of electronics too. So, isn't that an interesting bunch of little things there?
That's great.
All from just somebody not burning coal and making high value added products, Robert.
You know what's interesting? I had thought about every other one of the aspects that you just mentioned, except the shielding of electronics.
Oh yeah, that's one of the big deals.
I thought about that.
It's one of the big deals. It's like your
wow,
little.
that is a big deal.
Well, and for folks who are familiar with the concept of the so-called Faraday cage, people would say, like in. I even remember in one of the Dan Cook books about some computer that was. The point was that if you have a computer, you have to make sure that it's not vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse bombs, that kind of a thing.
Right.
But the idea of a Faraday cage or blocking, you've even seen it. There are people that sell a tiny little thing that you slip your credit cards into, or a wallet that has that, so that you can't scan, the codes that are magnetically encoded in your credit card. So, in terms of a Faraday cage, this is like you get to the point of nano Faraday cage by having, this possibility. The other one that I was not aware of, and one of the few products or companies that's using a lot of these, say, carbon fiber stuff just for incidental parts of the car. Like you're thinking, well, why would they use it for the thing that holds their mirrors and maybe their bumpers and stuff? Mm-hmm. It turns out that one of the biggest considerations in automobile construction is you have to have great paint jobs on your car. And they find out that they can use a process called electrostatic painting. Like if you're painting, your car body, you want it to be charged one way, and then your spray booth with the paint goes through, charges the paint, and then it clings and it doesn't. We kind of talked about that yesterday or last show. The electrostatic attraction means that you get a better paint job. So anything that has these fibers in it will have that too. So.
Wow.
Just a few little things.
Every time that we talk about nanofibers and nanotechnology and carbon nanotubes, I am just more amazed that people burn coal.
Well,
I just can't imagine.
It's just worth too much. I know.
Right. Wow.
I'm just thinking next time I do my driveway, Robert, I'm going to use Nanocrete, which, as you know, was invented way back at the Smart Center with a young science project person. And instead of shoveling the snow, I'm just going to hook some electricity to it and run through and melt it off. So
and melt it down. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So listen, we're getting into our healthy food section here. Well, this is a little bit of genetics. Bananas. Bananas. This is, again, this story has a lot that needs to be read through. So we're going to talk about maybe just a few things. One of the first things, this is actually about the fact that they're trying to confer a fungus resistant to Cavendish bananas. Of course, Robert, those are your favorites, I'm sure, Cavendish. And
actually, Actually, they are pretty good.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the part that's funny about this, because I knew a certain English from England professor who was a mathematical geneticist who talked about the dreadful bananas that we have these days. And I said, what are you talking about? And the reason why you and I might like Cavendish bananas is because it's kind of the only bananas that you get.
Right.
The banana industry is like a single cultivar industry. And a lot of it's because of, this virus issue. But if you scroll down, one of the things that's really interesting, before we even get to this little part, do you remember you remember that candy called Circus Peanuts?
Yeah.
That was orange, and it had a really strong, delicious banana flavor.
Yeah.
That was patterned after the original banana it says prior to the 1920s, most of the bananas available globally were a variety called Gros Michel. And then they they were just wiped out by a fusarium fungus called TR1. And so this is a cool story about how they're finding a way to introduce some resistance to that by just exposing the present banana, which is starting to show some, susceptibility to fungus, to a completely different fungus, but then it imparts, and they're not sure of the mechanism yet, but it imparts the resistance to the banana. So
good,
very cool story.
I just wanted to say that there was a friend of mine in American Samoa that had a plantation, and he raised over 20 varieties of bananas.
Yes.
There were bananas for roasting. There were bananas for boiling.
Oh yeah, there are different sizes and colors.
For eating raw. Yeah. There were bananas with that you ate with pork. There was bananas that you ate with a coconut sauce. I mean, there was such a wide variety of bananas, and they were little things the size of your thumb to almost the size of your forearm.
And different colors and everything.
These things were astounding. Yes.
And so yet, for some reason, the banana industry decides to focus on one single cultivar.
One single banana species.
It's called, I think they call that monoculture, isn't it? Where
they certainly do.
You are now totally susceptible to being wiped out because of... that's another whole story in itself. Well, Robert, I know you like to have a cup of tea in the morning.
I do.
And this story is about a really interesting thing. This story popped up all over the place. They're basically finding that now they do say drinking plenty of tea. And I found two different stories. This one, I'll just give you the quick summary. Drinking 4 or more cups of black, green, or oolong tea showed a 17% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
Now,
my wife
huge.
And I were just talking about that because I think I might be right on the edge of that. So sounds like I need to drink more tea.
Well, and the thing is, when they say a lot, really they're just talking about, like drinking. The way I saw the study in two different places. One of them, the analysis said that it could be as much as 20% lower risk, but this one says 17%. And for the most part, they're talking about like 4 cups a day. They say that seems like a lot. And I'm thinking, well, 4 cups of tea a day is, if you think of having some iced tea and stuff, it's not that much. Pretty a profound issue here. So this is and they're talking about over a period of time. So if you're drinking it, you need to start right now, Robert. As soon as the show's over.
Right now. Okay.
I'm going to say go get. I'm not sure about sassafras tea. I think these are all like the almost going back to the Chinese tea or the medicine of China being tea. This is certainly related. Now, the other quick thing is this: if you're going to have tea, you need to put some honey in it. And since you've been out on the islands, I'm trying to figure out where Manuka honey comes from. It says here, Robert, that Manuka honey.
Manuka.
Actually, I think it might be from somewhere in Fiji or somewhere. It turns out, I'm looking at our time, and I need to start the music because we're actually we're just a minute out. The cool thing about this is this particular honey has a antimicrobial activity in a broad spectrum because of the plant that it comes from. So I think it comes from, I'm obviously Manuka is probably from a particular flower, just like, we have buckwheat honey and different things like that.
Right, yeah.
So this is a cool story too. So I'm just going to say, read this story and see if you can find some Manuka honey in the region here, and you'll be set for the rest of the day if you just start today.
Alrighty, I will.
All right, a few seconds left just to say, hey, thanks for listening to Radio Science News. We're going to be back next week. You can find all the information online, and there you go. Clicking off right